2 p.m. Continuation of our California State Athletic Commission meeting here Tuesday, February 27, 2018. We're going to go to agenda item number 8. Our executive officer's report. Mr. Foster, are you prepared to make your report, sir? Yes. Please proceed.
February 16th, the commission had $1,129,012 in revenue to the support fund, $5,295 to the neurological examination account, and $259,733 to the Boxers Pension Fund. In brevity, fiscal month 1 has just came out, so I've saw my first true budget report of the year from July.
When did you get it?
About 3 weeks ago.
Okay.
But I can tell you, and that's why I don't have the expenses in here, is I don't know what they are. But I got the revenue, and I can say with a high high degree of probability that we're revenue positive right now. Okay, so I can't say it with certainty because I've not saw the reports, but that's where we're at. The only current, and maybe I'll have Mr. Walker speak to this as well, is our regulation is examination of boxer applicants. Okay. And I don't have to tell this commission anything about that regulation that you guys don't already know. We've taken quite a few tries at this one. This one needs to move. Spencer, you want to comment?
I don't know where it is right now over the department.
Okay.
I can check on it.
Okay. Yeah. Hold on.
Okay, we moved on from budget to the status of the
proposed regulation.
yeah, the proposed regulation on the boxer applicants and their legible assessment. Is that what we're talking about?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Did anyone have questions on the budget?
Oh, I'm
Commissioners? Any questions on the budget? When will you get expense information, do you think?
I will get that information.
Not regulation, on the expenses, back to the budget. Andy jumped over on us before we had a chance to
sorry.
scrutinize the
A
number.
lot of sweet teeth in there.
Yeah. Sir, I don't know.
Not sure, okay.
Yeah, and I don't want to speculate. I've speculated to this commission multiple times
You don't
about these
know.
budgets.
Okay.
I don't know. They say in short order.
Okay. You've done some work on our portfolio, correct? Since
Yep.
last meeting?
Yes, sir.
Want to tell us about that?
Well, we re-signed the contract with Raymond James, and Mr. Shaw has rebalanced the portfolio to what he has considered a better allocation for the commission to achieve better growth for the boxers. I think he could probably comment on that better than I could, but that's what he's doing.
You guys have focused on this. We've interacted a little bit on this.
I have.
And we think that they're making some appropriate adjustments.
He thinks
In
so.
response to the market and what it's doing.
That's correct.
Okay.
Especially, he rebalanced it. I believe it was the day that it went down so far, like over 1,000 points. He made some adjustments that he thinks is going to be beneficial for the commission and for the commissioners, the commission's boxers. Is it okay to move to the regulation, sir?
Yes.
Okay.
We have any other questions in regard to our budget or funds, commissioners?
Are we talking about the pension distributions? We haven't got there yet?
No, we haven't gotten there yet.
Okay.
Okay, item D, you were back on the, I think Mr. Walker was going to tell us.
I will check on the status of that.
Okay.
So
That's
correct.
correct, ma'am.
And we are doing the process differently now, that is when it's submitted to DCA, it goes through a lot more legal reviews, so it has a better chance
That's correct.
of passing, and that might be some of the reason for the delay.
That is it. Because the whole process has changed. And we used to get regulations through quicker, and now
It's slower.
it's a lot slower.
It's supposed to be faster, but it's not. Is
not.
there anything else that we can be doing to help this along? Because, no?
No. Depends on whose desk is sitting on. Because they don't have to go to agency as well.
Mr. Foster, can you remind us of the downside is happening that this regulation isn't moving forward?
This is our neurological assessment, as well as the examination of boxer applicants that was.
So we need this money to continue with our logic?
Well, we need this money, okay. By regulations in 2008, the commission was supposed to pass regulations to do both these things, to make the assessment and to by regulation, put what's already in the law. So the MRI, and the MAC worked on these recommendations for quite a long time. Okay, Dr. Williams was part of that. We came back, the commission approved it. Okay, but before the commission approved it, we've been working on this for a while. And this started with Assistant Director Tracy Ryan back when she was doing it, and we've been here many times. And my concern as executive officer, I have no concerns about the regulation. I just want to make sure that this time, if there are concerns, we can get it back and fix it. But the main thing is, let's get this one through, because this one needs to be done. And as regards to the neurological assessment, that's an audit recommendation from the Bureau of State Audits, and I'm trying to check off these audit recommendations. There's not many left. That's one of them.
Okay, going to C, status of delegate Annie's.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, and just before we get there, just want to let you know, Steve Fossum sends his regrets. He was not able to attend today. He's with his daughter at some kind of, he's with his daughter at some kind of trip. So JT still with Camo is coming up.
One of you gentlemen give him a microphone. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Chairman Carvelli, Commissioners. Pleasure to be here. Our camo report was brief, but we've been anxiously engaged in some interesting developments in camo. One thing that we've been working on for a while that I'd love to share with you that's in the memo that you do have is training has always been paramount in our mission. Is an amateur regulatory body, as well as, and that's, I'm sure, harmonious with the mission of CSAC. But we have a massive state, and training has always been challenging to be able to coordinate common practices and best practices throughout the state of California, because it's such a massive state, especially in the amateur athletics, where most people are not involved and anxiously engaged in this for money, but they're doing it because they want to be involved. It's a lot of volunteerism. So what we've done is we've actually, one of our longtime inspectors, lead inspector, he's a professor, and we have a structure for an online course for our inspectors, which I think is quite unique. There's really nothing out there like that for amateur official training. And so we're going to be rolling that out in 2018, and we're happy to share that with you. So what we're going to be doing is it's a course that's going to have an education component, but also testing. And it's not really a testing that's going to be used as a way to weed people out of the program. It's going to make sure that people are competent is athletic inspectors across the state, and that we're having access to the same information across the board. And that is going to be one of our first initiatives and one of our largest initiatives of the year. So we're excited to share that. Other than that, we're off to a good start this year. We have a very busy March, so we've got our plates full this month.
JT, your financial report, are you sending those to Andy?
Yeah, I have regularly. We actually just got taxes back a couple days ago, so I can forward those to you. They were.
You sending them to Andy?
I'll send them to Andy.
Thank you.
I was not able to get those back in time for the packet. I don't think you want them in the packet, but Andy can review them.
Just let Andy figure that out for us. Thank you. Thanks, JT.
Any questions?
Is this training test like an online DMV sort of test where you pass or fail online? Or,
Yeah.
Really?
Mhm.
I would love to see this because Mr. Foster and I have been talking about a test like this for CSAC officials and or other. So, yeah, we'd love to see.
We're really excited about it. Our inspector, Jeff McKendricks, again, he's developed curriculums that he works at a college. He's really passionate about these things. So we've been trying it over the last, I'd say, year and a half, kind of building this out and allowing certain officials to go into the program to see if it really does help motivate them, but also help catch them up to speed quicker. And so far, we've had really good results with it. But it's a great way for us to be able to get those basic components and skills and knowledge necessary to be a competent athletic inspector to everybody and get everybody on the same page. So this is a big one for us, and we're excited to move this forward. Other than that, any other questions? It's business as usual, and look forward to reporting next time.
Thank you.
All right.
To you.
Mr. Chairman, with your permission, I'll skip on the delegated entities to USFL because it's going to be a shorter report. Save USA Boxing for last. Just of note, Mr. Frank's coming up
Come on, John.
to give this report. If you'll notice the proposed rule changes, I've reviewed these rule changes and I'm highly supportive of these three rule changes for USFL. I think this is exactly what this commission is looking for, and these three rule changes promote health and safety of the youth athletes. And I think Mr. Frank will speak more to that.
John Frank with the USFL. Just briefly, aside from the report, we've had one event since. That was last week in Ontario, California with 19 bouts. And we had one medical suspension, but it was due to an asthma attack. So I don't know if that would be classified as an injury, but we reported that to the physicians that are monitoring us. And an asthma attack?
That might be brought on because
Did it occur during competition?
It occurred during competition and it was stopped. The bout was stopped due to that. And he was placed on medical suspension until, right.
You can have exercise-induced asthma.
Correct, correct, yep. Well, it's, I mean, we listed it as a medical suspension and we reported it to the doctors that are working under James Andrews for it. And actually our tally now, it's 1,024 exposures and we've had 16 injuries, including the asthma attack, 15 without it. We've recently updated our website and we have a new licensing database that it's complete. I actually have a Skype call tomorrow just to test it out, and we're going to start utilizing that. It from last year, that presentation with the medical cards, it'll do a lot of those features, although the card is not working yet. It'll have a lot of the secure ways to hold the medical information, to send reports on it, to automatically suspend the athletes, and also to monitor the results and licensing status a little bit better than what we've had right now. So we're looking forward to that. It'd make my job a whole lot easier in monitoring the eligibility and the status of the kids and coaches. And on Thursday, I'm meeting with the director of the Kravitz Leadership Institute of Claremont McKenna College to develop a leadership character building curriculum for the licensed athletes that are, I think we're targeting 13 to 17 years old. We're gonna make them complete this course. Leadership based on good character traits and principles for them go hand in hand with their physical skills. And hopefully we'll be able to roll that out this year. But again, the first actual meeting is on Thursday on this. And then I can go over the rules modifications that Andy had mentioned before. They're
Mr.
rather
Frank,
brief.
could I ask just one question on your report?
Yes.
In other activities for 2017, you said that USFL worked with Ladita?
That's
The
LA
sponsor.
HIDA. It's a clearinghouse for law enforcement training in Southern California, and they facilitate training for sworn police officers, and we've done some courses in arrest and control for them.
So USFL is teaching law enforcement officers?
It's a arrest and control course that I actually developed during my time in the Marshal Service, and now we provide that training for law enforcement.
Okay, was that, do we get paid for, did USFL get paid? for
No,
that?
it's volunteer. The class is through HIDA. It's a volunteer service.
Tell them
Any
about the
other
rule
questions
changes.
on that, or?
These rule changes are very useful. Explain the 3 rule changes.
Okay, first rule change is, so there was a rule where if there was a no-fault injury, that didn't involve the contest, or the injury where both athletes were in fault, it would be declared a draw. So we took away that rule because it was a little bit confusing what a no-fault injury was, and we removed the rule, and the uninjured fighter would win by default as long as they didn't cause the injury by a foul, because it was very gray what a no-fault injury would be.
What is the text of the actual rule change? Is it the thing in the bullet point, or do we have that?
The bold is the change of what the change is. So in the first one, it's Article 2, Section 3 of the rule book. Proposal to remove this rule and declare the uninjured athlete winner by injury default.
Okay, so the change is to remove the text.
Remove that text
that's
underneath
in the
it.
bullet. That
So
starts if the bout ending.
yes, that would be removed from the
Okay,
rule
so
book.
that is the actual language.
Yes.
Okay. Got it.
And the next one is in Section 4, and the proposal is to add this rule, and it's something that the referees have been utilizing even without the addition of the rule, just to protect the athletes. So the additional rule will be athletes hurt by illegal technique should be afforded a short recovery period and not be finished off while injured. Referees should halt the bout and conduct a short evaluation to determine if the athlete is fit to continue. The medical official may be summoned to help in the evaluation. It's basically like an extended 8 count in boxing, but however the referee needs to do to determine if the athlete's hurt. What we don't want is the athlete dropped by a good body shot or a good technique and then finished off while they're injured to get more injured. So we can stop that before it happens. And then the third rule would be Article 3, Section 5, restart positions. And the proposal is to add this rule to protect against intentional or unintentional slamming. And the rule is elevating an opponent fully above the hips is considered an effective escape of an attempted submission or the guard. And the referee should break the hold to prevent an unintentional slam. So in practicality, it's if one of the athletes can elevate them above their hips and they hold on to the guard or in a submission, there's really hard to detect if they're going to slam intentionally or fall and cause a slam. So we're just going to deem that as an effective breaking the hold, and the referee will start them neutral position.
Going forward, I didn't know that this was the actual text, and I wanted the text. And so let me put it in quotes, so we know it's not the description in the actual text.
Correct. Yeah, what's written there is the actual
Got it.
rule.
Okay,
That'll be implanted in the rule book. Is there any other questions for the packet or?
I make an observation about all the good work you're doing, including all the trainings and reporting. It's come a long way, and it's impressive in my opinion. So congratulations to you all for that.
Thank you.
It looks like that you're running in a slight deficit, so still struggling with that.
Somewhat, and a lot of that is due to the new website that we developed. To have it redone costs a little bit of money.
It's okay, you're putting the money back in. That's
So,
great.
and I can comment a little bit on the training with the LA HIDA. We also run every year we run the police and fire championships, the U.S. Police and Fire Championships. Last year was actually the World Championships. So we do that as our attachment to the law enforcement competitions. As far as our charter is to youth, military, and law enforcement. Try to combine those three entities. So the training we provide through HIDA, it falls under that category. It can be easily taken away, and I can do it as an individual.
Okay, let me clarify. Okay, so your charter for USFL is youth, military, and law enforcement, but you're only our delegatee for youth.
Yes, correct.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that there's this big separation with what that you being our delegatee is just for youth, and we are not responsible or oversight for anything that you do with military or police.
That's correct. It's totally separated.
Right.
And the military is just we run their combat sports for Camp Pendleton. And we've been doing that for years, and that I do as a volunteer basis also.
Does that sound fine to you, Mr. Spencer? Okay, that's completely fine, that there's no danger of it leaking over us being responsible for anything. Okay, thank you. That was my concern. I appreciate it.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
All right.
Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you, John.
Andy?
Yes, sir.
Sorry, go ahead.
Okay,
Okay.
we talked about the pension fund, Andy? It's back on, did you talk
It's an
about it?
agenda item, I just skipped over.
Okay, you skipped over, okay.
Okay, USFL, done, Camo done. Do you have anything for ICAF to report?
Well, I just want to point this out, and this is really for Commissioner Lehman, because I feel like that Steve Fossum has really upped his game on this report, and I think this is exactly what you're looking for, Commissioner Lehman. You correct me if I'm wrong, but it looks to me like he's providing you not the names, of course, but a very detailed list of serious suspensions, and I certainly find that helpful myself as the executive officer to have that, especially that one that happened on December 2nd. I mean, that really raised my eyebrows, and he and I talked about it. So, I mean, that's something that I need to know about. So that I would just point that out. The information's there. He's run 6 events since the last meeting. And then, sir, with your permission, if there's no questions about kickboxing.
Well, I kind of do. It's the whole problem about, we discussed last time, when a competitor refuses to go to the hospital, despite the recommendation to do so, and especially when there's a possible injury. And again, my training's in emergency medicine, and we're taught that if you suspect a possible injury, that head injury and cognitive ability, they can't, it's implied consent, that they're not cognizant or perhaps don't have the ability to refuse care. So a signature refusing care against medical advice is not enforceable or correct waiver. And this text that Mr. Fossum has put into the bout agreements, I see where it's going, and it's, good thought, but I don't think it's enforceable. And I query whether the waiver that the ambulance company gets when someone says, I don't want to go to the hospital, and they sign it for the ambulance, whether that covers us. And this is a crossover with legal and medical, and it's still an issue, and it's not solved by this provision and suggested by Mr. Fossum.
Although I do think in most instances, I think this needs to be worded better, but in most instances, as a practical matter, if there are children, there's going to be a parent, and if they are not children, most of the time, at least, they will, I would say 99% of the times, they will have a coach, or they will have somebody there with them. So as a practical matter, I think most of the time it's fine, but I do think that Commissioner Mary is right. This needs to be reworded. Yeah.
I'll talk to Steve and see if we can get somebody.
And I think it's an issue that crosses over to, that might cross over. We should reassess what we're doing for boxing and
Yes,
MMA as
and during
well.
our MAC meeting, we talked at length about this.
It's a big issue that we should.
Well, it's also an issue that we don't need to reinvent, because this has been litigated.
Let's ask Dr. Williams.
Yeah, no, what we talked about at the MAC meeting was that from a practical standpoint, people do have the right to refuse medical care, but when we recommended that they be transported and we transfer them over to the ambulance drivers or whomever's there from that standpoint, then we've kind of completed our duty, and then they can have them either sign against medical advice if they aren't going or what have you, but the ringside physician has kind of turned over their care to the EMS.
And a physician is allowed to do that even though the paramedic is beneath your skill level?
That's how it was interpreted and what was discussed at the MAC meeting. Correct me if there's anything different than that.
That was what was discussed.
There's case law on this.
Turnover care.
There's actual case law on this. We don't have to reinvent this. We can just look it up.
You report back to us. And you'll help Mr. Fossum with this language, gentlemen? Okay, great, thank you. Can we move on to the USA Boxing Report, please?
Yes. Mr. Chairman, as you know, USA Boxing appeared, Mike McAtee at the last meeting. Well, I know Commissioner Lane, Vice Chairman Lehman knows, and Mike McAtee appeared, and there were some additional questions, and Commissioner Martha Senior-Quidez was nice enough to kind of spearhead this fact-finding and get the stuff. So this is, she's really worked with Mike McAtee a lot over the last month, at least. So Mike McAtee is here from Colorado Springs. Where's Mike? Oh, here he comes.
Please introduce introduce yourself, sir?
Yes. Excuse me. My name is Mike McT. I'm the Executive Director of USA Boxing.
Welcome, and thank you for coming again.
Thank you.
Good to see you.
It's an honor to be here, and I'm looking forward to presenting all the information that we presented here, and then working with the commission. I can tell you that Commissioner Martha spent a lot of time directing, and I think how we did business in the past of providing just generic information wasn't enough. One of the things that Vice Chair Lehman said was that, wanted details behind it. We revamped how we do our bookkeeping, so to speak. And I think that you all will start seeing our reports with all the detail in there, and anything we can do that you think would be more helpful, please let us know and we'll adjust accordingly.
I think the report's great. Do you have, commissioners, we have questions? And thank you, Commissioner Shanakidas, for all that, as usual, hard and effective work. Are you mumbling?
Yes, yes.
There's
I
no
need more
mumbling
coffee.
No mumbling.
Okay. So,
You ready? Who's got questions?
Mary?
You go first.
Okay, so we received 400 and some odd pages from USA. Thank you very much. I have some comments and mostly and then some obviously suggestions. On the medical suspensions, we received some information, but not the specifics, and we discussed this before you're coming. So maybe at the next meeting, we can, and maybe Andy, you can show him from the other delegations, the kind of breakdown that we get from the other delegations, so that you, because I know you have the information, I just don't think I was specific enough after having gone through all that. But anyway, that you can bring that. I still have some issues with the fees, but I'm not entirely sure this is the right and appropriate time to go over all the, picayune breakdowns with the fees, and at some point, perhaps, with the chairman's permission, maybe we can talk about this off-grid. I, for example, have a question about the insurance and whether, I know that there was a broker who made a pitch, I think 7 years ago, long before your time, and maybe that it's time to revisit that. But things like that maybe we can revisit offline and not at a commission meeting.
In regards to the insurance, I can tell you we were contacted by an insurance carrier out of Florida. It's been about 2 years since we've revisited our insurance, and at the direction of our board of directors, we are putting our insurance out to bid this year. So the timing of that is excellent.
Great. The one thing that really concerns me, after looking at this is, and you and I have spoken about this, but I would just like to bring this to the awareness of the entire commission. AIBA has in its statutes so in the bylaws of USA Boxing has incorporated AIBA, and by necessity, because AIBA is the international governing body. And AIBA's bylaws and statutes, the statutes were amended at the end of January of this year. And AIBA says that its mission is to govern the sport of boxing in all its forms worldwide, and then to develop technical rules, et cetera, and to ensure their enforcement in all competitions organized by AIBA, including AIBA Professional Boxing, World Series of Boxing, which is also professional, in each confederation and any national federation, to organize its own international and multi-continental competitions and events, and to regulate boxing in all its forms in accordance with these statutes, AIBA bylaws, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, to exercise governance, approval, authority over the statutes, constitutional bylaws, et cetera, et cetera, over all confederations and national federations. So obviously this is in direct contradiction with our mission and our objectives. The other thing that concerns me is the statute at 6.1, AIBA says, confederations, national federations, officials, competition officials, etc., or organizations subject to these statutes, which would include USA Boxing, must always comply with these statutes and AIBA rules and regulations. 6.2 says
Commissioner?
that they must explicitly be recognized in their bylaws, and 6.3 says they have to have an undertaking or potentially be thrown out of AIBA. Then there are amendments to these statutes, and this is also a real concern, because in the amendments, I realized that there was the formation of something called the American Boxing Confederation, which was founded by an extraordinary assembly held in Brazil as a result of a merger of the Confederation of Pan American Boxing and the American Bureau of AIBA. And if you look at the American Boxing Confederation, it says that it was formed by AIBA as a result of AIBA's new policy of recognizing only one organization per continent. And
Commissioner, what does this have to do with this report and questions?
well, I'm getting to that. So the problem is that at some point, USA Boxing, and Mr. McAtee and I have spoken about this, at some point, USA Boxing and AIBA probably, it looks like, at least according to these, going to come to some sort of conflict unless something changes. Because there may be a time when AIBA recognizes this confederation as opposed to USA Boxing in terms of international competition, particularly because the amendments to the statute have now put executive members of the American Boxing Confederation into voting rights of the EC of AIBA. That's a concern because they could potentially vote USA Boxing out, so something needs to change as you go forward into potentially Olympics, into future Olympics, because it threatens the existence of USA Boxing. Perhaps it makes no difference in terms of how amateur boxing happens within the United States, but certainly it could threaten the existence of the nationals and internationals and how you move forward into international competition. And that's a real threat to USA Boxing. And because our licensing fees from California go directly to USA Boxing, that could change the entire dynamics of the delegation, right?
And I can be brief on that. There is our concern in 2013, USA Boxing did change the bylaws to be more in line with AIBA. I can tell you that the changing of our bylaws now, and more importantly, the changing of the rules of AIBA after the 2016 Olympics, probably the biggest thing that we have is that they have changed their rules, and this is probably the biggest thing, and we talked about it. They put in their national federations for domestic competition may alter AOB, amateur open boxing competition rules to reflect national laws and conditions. Before, USA Boxing had acquiesced to that governance of AIBA, which was our international federation, with Mike Martino, Rick, who was the former executive director, myself, our president, John Brown, Rick Adams with the USOC. We met with AIBA in October of 2016. They understood that they truly wanted their prior administration to control boxing from cradle to grave worldwide, which is 201 countries. We made the point that that is impossible in this country because we have Ted Stevens Sports
Mr.
Act.
McAtee, I don't know where we're going with this or why, folks.
Okay, I'll be
I'm
brief.
stopping.
I'm sorry.
I'm stopping.
No, but
It's
this,
enough.
But it's,
What does this have to do with the
it's
business of
very,
this commission?
it has with the Olympics.
it does. It
Well,
is a
somebody
big
bring
deal.
it to a point here.
Okay.
We
Yes,
have
I will.
Business
This is,
of our commission and an agenda to follow. Please make a point here.
Okay, my point here is the USOC under the Ted Stevens Sports Act only recognizes one amateur boxing group, and that's us. And they would not recommend or
And you're
recognize.
fine. We have a delegation with you. Until that is threatened and we have something to do about it.
We would
Fine.
ask you all support if
Okay.
IEBA tried to do
Great.
anything.
Anything else from Mr.
Wait, could I
McAtee
just-
that is on point to? What, go ahead. I mean, I don't know what I'm missing.
Can I just say,
Discuss
the bylaws that were amended, it said USA Boxing doesn't have to comply explicit or perfectly with AIBA if national laws differ. Okay, does it only say national because CSAC, although we're super important, we're not national?
It says national federations, which we're the federation, and
Uh-huh.
we're respond to you. So our conditions and federations are different. So we can
Okay.
control what happens in this
Does
country.
that sound right to you?
yeah, I think for the time being, and we've discussed this,
And-
I think, but it is definitely something you have to keep an eye on.
Yes, definitely.
Right. Especially with these new amendments going in at the end of January of this year.
Yes.
Right. Yeah, so that's the big, and then the other thing is the concussion protocol is not on USA Boxing's website. It does need to be because we need to be AB 207 compliant.
We will add that. Currently, I've reached out to the 4 local boxing committees here to make sure that they are putting it on at the local level, their Facebooks, their websites. But I think it is a good suggestion, not only to do it for the state of California, but for the whole country. So we'll put those on there, and that will be on our website.
So we'll add the concussion protocol. You will give Commissioner Shanakers or Andy the detail and the injury reports similar to our other delegated entities, Mr. McAtee, and you'll keep an eye on the world politics of boxing administration for us.
That is correct.
Thank you
And
so
in
much.
our protocols, we're actually, in working with Andy Foster, is your protocols.
Okay.
So they're the same.
We appreciate that. Any other commissioners? for this report?
One other thing, your medical handbook is not on your website. I think it's being reviewed.
That it is being
Yeah.
reviewed by our medical committee because there was a lot of things in there that were IEBA related, and we're taking all those out.
Okay,
And we would continue to, like you here at our meetings, and sometimes
You
they're
have
not so
fantastic
long.
weather, and it will either be myself or Mike Campbell, who is our boxing operations events person. We've already penciled in these meetings based on the last year's schedule, so we'll have somebody here from the national office.
thank you very much. Okay.
Thank you.
Foster, can we keep moving
Thank you.
along?
Yes, sir. Next thing, sir, is the upcoming event schedule, number E. Obviously, there's an event schedule that's in your meeting materials. I would direct your event. We have the NICE ESPN show at the StubHub Center on March the 10th. Please come if you can. It's going to be a nice event.
Excellent.
Okay, and the staffing update for in the office. I'm just giving the commissioners an update. We have one staff member out on maternity leave. I'm about to lose another one. So I've got like 2 seasonal clerk positions that I may fill them both, may fill one, but I'll probably definitely fill one. But it's just an hourly person to help with the clerical stuff in the office because we are getting into the summer. And then number G, the report on the MAC meeting that was held on the January 27th. Dr. Williams was there. And I thought that meeting was one of the best MAC meetings that I'd been to. We covered a lot of stuff. We certainly talked about this refusal of care a good bit. We talked about that. We talked about the C3 Logics program, which I skipped over. Sorry about that. But just on the C3 Logics program, as of today, we've done either right at or a little bit over 700 exams, okay, of our licensed population. Mark Relier's here. He's in the back. He's leading that charge in Southern California, and we're getting that stuff done. And up north, I've got the office staff because it's a little easier up north. I can dispatch office people to weigh-ins, and sometimes I myself go. But we've been doing exams at weigh-ins, and we've got this process down a lot better. We've got it more efficient. We figured it, for by and large, we figured this thing out, okay? And I feel very confident in saying when I report in December that we'll have well over 1,000, which will be basically 100% of our licensing population, or almost well over 1,000. I really believe it. I mean, I believe it was 30-something this past weekend. So, Dr. Williams, do you have
Just
any?
a couple of really quick points about the last MAC meeting. One of the things that I thought was really interesting was just the makeup of some of the ringside positions that we have. I thought it was extraordinary. We had, even at that meeting, we had family practice physicians, internal medicine physicians, physical medicine and rehabilitation physicians, maxillofacial surgeons, orthopedic surgeons, cardiologists, ENT, plastic surgery. So it was really a very well-rounded group of ringside physicians. And one of Dr. Wallace's points was that although all of these individuals have different areas of subspecialty, which makes for great communication and interaction, what have you, at the MAC meeting, there is no quote-unquote specialty when it comes to what they're doing at ringside. A lot of that comes from experience, time on job. And so we had very good discussions on things like dehydration and how to assess for dehydration at weigh-in. And I thought it was extraordinarily productive. And again, just to see the breadth of different physician subspecialties represented, and all of those subspecialties coming together and resulting in such a safe and effective commission, I think was extraordinary. And just to piggyback on one point we made earlier, or I should come back to from earlier, with respect to individuals refusing care, what have you. One of the points that was made by Dr. Wallace was that the ringside physicians, although they're there to ensure safety and to surveil for injury and so on and so forth, they're not there to treat. And so once the observation and decision has been made that this individual requires treatment, they are transferred to that EMS individual or those professionals on site, and in a way that that may help in terms of our obligation relative to whether or not an individual refuses care, because they would really be doing that with the EMS and not necessarily with us. We can say, yes, this person, we've recommended that they proceed to the emergency room by EMS, by ambulance, what have you, and turn them over to the ambulance. And then in some ways we've satisfied at least that aspect of our obligation. Dr. Wallace did mention one episode in which he invoked kind of the 5150 kind of scenario where someone was required to be taken to emergency or to a hospital. But that was one time, he had said, in decades of activity. So it's something that's on our plate and that I think we absolutely need to revisit. We want to do that in conjunction with any recommendations we can get from legal. But as of now, that's kind of what was discussed. And part of it was because of this issue that the ringside physicians aren't treaters per se.
I'd like to be involved with that. I'm as a medic
Yeah,
and
that
an
would be
attorney.
great. Right.
I find it's fascinating,
Right.
the interaction. Okay. Apparently, I can't find an answer because I see both sides.
Thank you, Dr. Rose. Your report concluded?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Wait, we didn't talk about the pension fund?
I'm going to get to that. It's an agenda item.
Oh, yeah.
Give me a chance there.
Sorry.
Any other questions for Andy on his report? we can invite any members of the public to comment on Andy's report. Like? Okay, thank you. Let's go back to item number 7, subcommittee updates. Pension Fund Subcommittee, Commissioner Lehman, Commissioner, Vice Chair Lehman is here. Okay. And your item.
I'm sorry, because I see the pension under the budget, but it's
duplicate.
separate. Okay. Go ahead. Are we going to make the report, Andy?
Sure, we can.
Yeah.
This is the sort of the year-end report because we got the final numbers. We did 227,733 in pension payouts. The most important thing that's of note for the commissioners is our continued outreach with the World Boxing Council, with WBC. They've been helping us find people for once. We found one guy who's got 95,000 coming. So I mean that's the largest one I saw, I think. So that's a significant, amount of money. And he's happy, I suppose. I think they found us 4 or 5 to look at, and 4 of them were eligible, something like that. And we continue to work with them, and they'll find us new people. So, we have the good relationship with the WBC, and they're based in Mexico, so it's very helpful.
Excellent. Vice Chair, you want to add something?
Yes, I'd just like to say props to the office and WBC, and possibly think about doing something formal to
Yes.
thank them, because they're just doing it as a care for the sport and the athletes, and we need everyone. We're all in this together. I had a suggestion for our charts. We've been doing charts of the distributions, which is important, but obviously because we have such a backlog, at first we had really high distributions and now they're tapering off, but it's not because we're not making important distributions. It's more like we just did so much at the front end because of the backlog. I was wondering if maybe you could find someone at DCA, the office, to do a chart about our backlog of vested boxers.
It's a great idea.
Yeah.
It's a great
That's
idea. I know
really
exactly
we
what you're
care
looking
about, 'cause
for.
we want to see that getting smaller and smaller.
I was looking at that information recently, and I almost sent it to you, but I'll send it because I think it's interesting
Okay.
for you guys to
Yeah,
have.
in our future reports.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Can probably do that, right? Beth Harrington can help.
Maybe.
You almost sent it. You sound like the scientists from the labs today. I'm sorry, I couldn't resist. All right, is that report?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Yes?
Can we do something official to thank WBC?
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you, Vice Chair Lamb, for your work
After
on
all that, it was just those 2
It's okay,
comments.
it's fine. It's an extremely important part of what we do.
I'm
Okay.
navigating it here on the iPad, so it's hard
No,
for
I'm
me to
trying
keep the
not
linear.
watch you. All right, we have a recognition to do, which we're making these folks sit through all this. Perhaps we could do that now, and maybe they don't mind sitting here, but Mr. Foster, what do you think? Want to do the recognition for Rebecca Aurelia now? Why don't we do that? We're going to go to agenda item number 13, recognition of Rebecca Aurelia for her work in developing a new California State Athletic Commission event information database.
So-
Rebecca, will you please come forward, and Mr. Foster?
So I want to give a little background on this. I just thought, like I did at the last meeting. The Bureau of State Audits came out. I keep talking about the BSA today because it's important to try to get those things checked off. And we're working with the department on business modernization is what it's called. But the thing for us was we needed one of the recommendations from the Bureau was that we needed to develop a database that did all these different things. Well, that was initially going to be the Breeze system. The CSAC never did get the Breeze system. Not a problem, but when I realized that this is not happening, I talked to Mark, and I was like, look, because Mark was using this one system that he uses, and we got it distributed to the leads, and then the office staff was using this one system that they use. Okay, and I thought, this doesn't make any sense. I mean, why are we using one set of protocols here and another set here, and it's causing all this retyping and all this work? So what we've done is I talked to Mark and I talked with Rebecca, but I basically said, okay, this is what I need. Okay, I don't know how to make Excel do this, but this is what I need it to happen. And I would just go through the thing, and then Mark would find new things that it needed to do. And then Mark was able to take his initial program that Rebecca built and add it to it, so that basically now we have the field and the office combined into one. Now, we're still training. We still got some analysts that need practice. Okay, they write on areas they shouldn't and stuff. But by and large, it's starting to work. We've been live with it about 2 months. I showed it at the last meeting, as you remember. We don't have to show it again. But I mean, this is a 2 year. We've been working on this thing off and on for like a couple years now. It's not like this is something that we just like developed overnight. I mean, it's just been idea after idea. Okay, we need this. We need this. We'd go back, and I'm sure this is not the last version, because we're continually trying to think of new things and upgrades, and this would be better. And, to give you an example, one thing that we did was when we did the 10-point plan, one of the things we went back on the old system, and now it's incorporated in this new system, is we have the weights. Okay, we have the old weights, I mean, what they weighed the fight day, the whole bit, because of that thing. And then it flags the guys that are over, and we're able to show that. So it's very, it's more intricate than I'm even saying it is. It's quite impressive. And Rebecca made it.
Yay, thank you.
And sir, if I could just take a moment, I'd also like to just point out that, and just thank Rebecca publicly. We all go to the meetings, and she's a volunteer for us. I mean, we go to the fights, and who's out there giving our credentials out?
Right.
It's Rebecca, and she does it week in, week out. Just as at the forum this past weekend, Rebecca's out there at the desk, at the table, giving us our credentials. So, I mean, this thank you is probably a long overdue, and I personally very much like to thank her for all the hard work that she's
Come on
done.
up, let's make a presentation. It's not a check for all the work she's done, is it?
I know, it sounds like you work for us, we have to make it clear that you don't, that you're, it's all volunteer.
Turn the other
So
way.
we have to get
look at it. Step
photo.
aside.
Come on, go up there.
There we
If we
go.
all,
Well, thank you guys for getting in that. Very good. I'm gonna hold on to it. Thank you so much. Thank you.
it's mind-blowing to me.
You can work itself. Better Jane, say something? How about a raise?
So, ask for a raise.
How about any money?
So, like Andy mentioned, this has been an ongoing process, started about, 6 years ago with just, Mark Relier gave me, he had this vision and he gave me the direction on, look at all these different forms, what can we do with them? And that's where I came up with putting a database together to self-populate all the forms. And then with Andy's leadership, just providing even more detail on, let's combine things together and have it automate and, spit everything out and be efficient. So it's a work in progress still. As things come up, we still keep adding more formulas, and nobody gets to see all the things behind the background, all the different formulas that, calculate this and that and stuff like that. But I'm just honored and grateful to just be part of, as a volunteer, just to be part of this team. I hear so many great stories and so many great things that by a lot of different people that this is the best commission in the world. And so just to be a part of it and, help you guys out in any way I can, it's just been really a true honor for me.
You're not gonna
So,
stop, right?
thank you.
You're not gonna move on. Well, thank you again.
Thank you.
Agenda item number 9, discussion and possible action on the Association of Boxing Commissions Unified Rules of Kickboxing. Mr. Foster.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Like my memo says, from August of 2016 to July of 2017, I chaired the ABC, Association of Boxing Commissions Kickboxing Subcommittee. And that may be the wrong word, chair. I got the conference calls together because Commissioner Martha Shenyer-Quidez, this is her expertise. This is, her family is kickboxing royalty, really. I mean, I don't know any else to say it. They're among the most famous
That's what that road
kickboxers.
means. That's it.
Really?
No.
Really?
No.
And, you know, it was really needed because we have a unified rules of boxing. We have a unified rules of mixed martial arts, but kickboxing's done differently everywhere you go. It's just a different set. So, I really learned a lot about kickboxing. I mean, I participated, but who knew the nuts and bolts of it? And listening to these calls and listening to her and her husband, and Corey Schaefer was very involved in this process. People that know this industry, and this is a niche. This is really a niche subculture of combat sports, and you have a lot of true kickboxers, and I'll let Commissioner Martha talk about the rules, but these rules were thoughtful. I mean, there was a lot of thought that went into each one of these different rules, and call after call after call on this. Commissioner Shin?
So thank you. How about a round of applause for that?
Yes.
So this started because I noticed that at every kickboxing competition there were 6 sets of rules that the promoters would have to explain to the officials, and our officials were going, "What?" So every bout had a different set of rules, and it was very hard for them to know. And this one is following WK, this one's following ISK, this one's and so one of the reasons I thought that kickboxing was dwindling is partially because nobody really understood what set of rules to go by. So we decided to get together and put together a set of unified rules which made it easier for the promoters, easier for the officials, easier for everybody. And also because, MMA used to be just grappling. But as the years went by, there was more and more stand-up, and with more and more stand-up, there was more crossover into kickboxing, into boxing, and so you really need more consistency and more uniformity. So what I did was, first I got together every set of rule in the world, every set of rule, and put it on a grid. And then with the subcommittee, we talked about which rules were applicable, which rules were kind of just out in the middle of nowhere, and then we pared it down over the course of a year into what we have here. And then we introduced what we came up with, and there was a lot of revision, there was a lot of rewriting, and Mary, of course, noticed some typos that we still have because Mary lives for typos. But yeah, and Corey Schaefer, who regulates for Bellator and also is Glory, and of course knows kickboxing as well, and really likes to revise things a lot, and he was great. And so we introduced these rules at the ABC convention this last summer. We'll hopefully have them voted this coming convention.
They passed. They passed.
Oh, they did pass?
Yeah, they
Oh,
passed.
okay.
See?
'Cause I
So
left.
Good lobbying there, Ann.
Well, because I
good,
left
so
after the first day, I had to fly to China. But anyway, this is the long and the short of it. It's pared down just like the unified rules of boxing, unified rules of MMA without all the bells and whistles. And of course, any of the other bodies can add as they wish, just like any of the sanctioning bodies can add as they wish. But this is the core skeleton.
IKF is the.
Yes, they can use the rules, they can, but in terms of health and safety, in terms of the skeletal fouls, in terms of, this is just the skeleton.
Our delegate in the IKF has adopted these rules.
Yeah, everyone signed off on these, everyone's, and Corey was also great about that. He got, I don't know, like 200 of everybody around the world to sign off on them, so, before we even went to ABC. Yeah.
It's great.
a lot
Any
of
other
work.
questions for Malcolm or Andy?
Just as a question, yeah, first of all, great job, I read them all, and they made sense, so to me, and very well organized. I showed you the few typos. I did have a question at the end. It's the Rule 18 on the last page. It says male contestants must not wear clothing or attire on their upper bodies. Female contestants must wear short sleeve or form-fitting tops. And I was reminded of the transgender regulation we drafted, which allows the commission to require certain transgender athletes to wear, like a singlet, a top, or however appropriate clothing that the commission deems. So, but you said that to the extent there's inconsistencies, or not inconsistencies, but it's allowed for variation by local jurisdiction, so that will not be a problem?
Just like the unified rules of boxing or MMA, we can do whatever we want to, as long as they add to and don't take away in terms of health and safety. So this is just the core. So this is just the core skeletal of it. So if you, obviously it can't address everything, which is why it's only a few pages long. But obviously, yeah.
Okay, so to the extent there's a revision, maybe, that was the only thing that I could suggest.
Are there any actions to be taken by this commission?
No, since it was approved on July 26, 2017, the commission is not required to take any action.
Sponsor, anything else?
Not on that subject, sir.
Okay. Okay, so we'll, if any members of the public would like to speak on a particular item, thank you. Okay, agenda item number 11, calendar year end commission summary. Mr. Foster?
Mr. Chairman, I'm gonna, with your permission, I'm gonna change seats.
No, you can't change seats. Now you can.
This is not providing something that I haven't provided before.
Yeah. I've got it.
I don't have mine with me. The prominent space on my desk.
Just gonna run through this quickly.
Are you gonna go through all of this that we read already? That's what I'm trying to find out. Are you gonna do that?
In brief, yes.
Oh, 'cause we-
In brevity,
I
I'm
thought that's
gonna
why you
just,
sent it to us to read.
yeah. Okay. So we're, we talked about, well, in your book is all these things. We talked about the background on the commission. I need a book so I can follow along. We tried to talk about the number of events held in California, which was much more than any other state. We have the event types, which was 61% boxing, 28% MMA, 9% kickboxing, and 2% were mixed events. But then if you look at the gross event revenue, boxing was 58%, whereas MMA increased to 35%. But this is still a boxing state. California's a boxing state. Okay, not be the last one, but it's a boxing state. Okay, 730 active boxers right now. Okay, 88 are suspended currently. 44 televised events in 2017. An interesting statistic: 47.9% of boxing results ended in stoppage, KO or TKO. So we're marginally below the national average on that, which I think is impressive in some respects because we have the most boxing, and with the most boxing, you have more four-rounders. Do you know what I mean? Which means more club shows. I mean, I think people would agree you would tend to have 10s and 12s go to a decision more because they tend to, I mean, I think you guys get it. I found that, you know, and if you wonder how I gauge my matchmaking and whether I'm trying to be effective or not, that's how I do it. I put it against the national average and see where I'm at. Okay, and when I say matchmaking, I'm talking about matchmaking oversight. Okay, and I've also been able to use the tools that BoxRec gave me. And BoxRec has got these new tools that I'm able to gauge and use. And I'm going to start applying different matchmakers to the matches that they propose and then tie them back to each other. So I've got some new stuff that's coming out. So because I believe that I've got some matchmakers that have stoppages in the 30% range, and I've got some that are in the 80% range.
So you're going to rate the matchmakers?
I am.
Awesome.
That's a great idea.
More friends for Andy.
So we talk about the strategic
Andy,
plan.
did you put that in here somewhere, all the matchmaking oversight that you do? I didn't find it in here because, and by the way, I'm not pointing that out as an omission, but it's just something that is so impressive that you do and spend so much of your time on it. I'd probably considered the national oracle, oracle on this stuff. I mean, next time I put it in.
And it's probably the most important thing for the health and safety of our fighters.
No
Well, there it
question.
is, without approval.
Yeah, page 21.
Yeah, and to speak on that a little bit, you know, I'm glad I'm here and I'm doing this, and I'm very much pleased to be here and reporting. But my day-to-day operations are, I mean, I'm on the phone with matchmakers from the time I leave the house till the time I go home, and we're talking fights. And I feel like that's kind of, I mean, that's part of the job. And then the office staff, the analysts, are bringing me in problem people from the 10-point plan. Hey, this guy's 23 pounds over and he's got 7 days to make it, or whatever. And then I'm on the phone with Dr. Wallace. We've got a problem with this guy. So that's how the you know, the nuts and bolts of how it works. But all
Caring
this
for each individual athlete.
right. And, you know, I tried to tie all this together with the strategic plan that the commission put together a couple years ago, and you know, we try to you know, but number one is obviously health and safety, and
I'm sorry, has the MMASI rolled out?
I haven't checked today. It's any day now. I mean, it's and she's talking about the MMA severity index. That's any day now, and that's something that Commissioner Martha Shinurkides and I worked. I mean, how long have we been working on that? Yeah, it's been a long time. And I almost brought the algorithm to show you, but I thought that would be overkill.
So you almost just like those labs.
Yeah,
There's a lot here already.
yeah.
Break, jeez.
And it was like 9 spreadsheets full of data.
Spencer laugh at least.
Yeah. But
You're trying to work on that algorithm like this. Jeez.
there's the 10-point plan. the medical requirements, which was, would be in our examination of boxer applicants. We're using this, but this needs to get approved, I think. And then, look, the law allows the commission to require additional things, okay, if we need it for medical things. I've talked to Dr. Wallace, talked to the MAC a little bit about this, and we use the ARP over 40 years old recommended testing battery, okay, and I don't see there's anything wrong with that. The law allows it, and we use it. But you can see there's quite a few more tests that are required for athletes over a certain age, and the law allows it. Okay, and then we got the catastrophic incident plan that we worked in. That's in the book. We talked about the ballot approvals. One thing that I'd point out, and I think I've pointed out in the past, we've got the weight class now on the mixed martial arts database. I pointed that out before. That's a new thing that came from this commission. Win probability, that's box rec, and we continue to refine that algorithm all the time, but that's incredibly helpful. And then, obviously I'll let the officials know. The referees get tired of hearing from me on fight weeks. And we do that. Then this is the C3 Logics. This is Mark Royer runs the southern region down here, and really we have really got this thing going. We're over like 700 tests right now. And then with the pension fund, we've already covered that a little bit. We worked with the WBC. We've been trying to get this thing. This thing's more of the more challenging things to be super successful at. It's because we've got to find these people.
Anything meaningful like this should be challenging.
Yeah, and it's we're going to find a person. We haven't found one in California yet that's readily accessible. We're hoping to do a live where Vice Chairman Lehman and Commissioner Ayala can give a check out at a big fight. I think that might get somewhere else. That'd be neat if they're agreeable. The national databases, as you guys, as the commissioners know, I chair the Boxing Registry Committee for the Association of Boxing Commissions. That's one of the few actually powers that the federal law gives the ABC, and California is the chair of it, as it should be, because California has most events. BoxRec will be flying in from England to work with me in the Sacramento office on March the 7th. And then they'll be appearing at the Quig fight, because the British fighter, on March the 10th. So if you can attend, John Shepard from BoxRec, you don't get to see much. He'll be out with his programmer. We've made some major improvements in that database already. We're on about revision 5 or 6, and we've got it a wealth of information from BoxRec. I'm talking about the association's version. Then we have our medical suspension reports, drug testing. We just literally just worked. We just did some very, very, very comprehensive testing on the Estrada Rungvisai fight from this past weekend. Not only did CSAC do comprehensive testing, and when I say comprehensive testing, I'm talking about carbon isotopes, the whole deal, EPO, everything. But we also worked with VADA on the in-competition testing. So we got them both, and then we did some other very good testing. As the scientists mentioned this morning, there's 2 labs in the country. We got one of them here. I've been working on the dehydration, the gym visits, the videos. Obviously, we've already covered the delegations today. Been working on the training. We're going to have, we had the ringside physicians training not too long ago. Dr. Williams was there. We're going to have another training. Mark and I have been looking at ways to be financially, to save some money. Now, we had the big trainings in December where everybody came out for the inspectors, which is fine, but we're looking at doing some degree of training a couple of hours before an event, since we have that room. Okay, so that's one thing that we've looked at doing. And obviously, we'll be back with the association with the referees, judges, and timekeepers shortly. These are the regulations. This commission should be very, very proud of that first one up there, payment of contestants. That's getting a lot of positive response. This is interesting. This is where we're at versus everybody else.
Yay.
The state of California does almost as much activity as with boxing's concerned as New York, Nevada, and New York, Nevada, and Texas put together. So I found that interesting. I think you might find that
Is
interesting.
that graphic's not in here?
No, it's new because I had to wait till the year end.
Okay.
Those are the year end numbers.
Can you send that out to the gang?
I will.
Thank
Yes, sir. Thank you. Thought
Very,
you might.
very, very impressive.
Thank you, sir. Yeah, thank you.
This is quite an impressive, if you haven't had a chance to look at it, folks. Any questions or comments for Andy on this?
This is really a nice
Yeah,
job. He
yeah.
did a great job, and I know it was because Commissioner Souter suggested that this should be done, and this was very well done. I know you put in a lot of work into this. This was
It was, and I appreciate you saying that. It was. This is about a 3-month project, and it was because of Commissioner Souter, because I was thinking of what he said, and I was like trying to get it done and trying to do it in like the whole bit.
Sage.
Just the final slide. And look, I'm pretty pleased with this. California tied the country in the number of title fights last year.
So we had as many.
The number of title fights.
Title fights.
We had as many as the rest.
No. We tied Nevada.
Oh,
Think about that. Okay, because Nevadas were title. I mean, think about that. I'm not saying we had it as big, but we had 38 title fights. It's just the number. So, do you have any questions? Yes, sir.
I may have missed it, and you were talking about the amount of time you spend with the promoters. Have you ever done an analysis of your job? A 360-degree look at your job and what consumes your time and where you find you don't have enough time and where you find you might have too much time? You talk about a strategic plan for
Sure.
the organization, and this is a marvelous piece of work. But have you ever looked at your own job and analyzed it?
One time when Commissioner Lehman came and visited me one time in Sacramento, I put together, I don't know if you'd call it an analysis, but I tried to go down step by step of the different areas that I deal with, but I didn't weight it by time because dealing with the matchmakers would be, a big weight of that time. So I didn't weight it because I'm just always talking to them. Like, we're always talking. But I can do that, sir.
Well, I think it'd be interesting to know, and you sometimes find you have an executive who's profoundly efficient, will work 60 hours a week without complaining, and you look at how they actually use their time, and you're really not getting, and I'm not saying there's any indication of that with you, but you sometimes find that people are spending their time doing jobs that aren't the critical jobs.
Mm-hmm.
That they're doing mechanistic jobs, mechanical jobs, that are taking them away from, looking down the line 6 months at any given. I think it would be interesting to know what you do for a living.
Sure.
And sometimes you find out that maybe your chief executive needs an assistant who is qualified enough to do some of those time-consuming but not critical jobs.
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Souter, I have something that I think we can share through Andy that we have kind of listed of responsibilities and accomplishments for Andy. So I want to share that so maybe you could review and comment on it and ask questions that you see that are not addressed, as you're pointing out. Conclusion.
That's your leisure.
Yes, I will. Do you want to read that to?
February,
Go back and
See what it is.
oh, Thompson Boxing Promotions.
We received this.
And it's dated February 19 2018. Dear Andy, Thompson Boxing Promotions had our first fight of 2018 on February 16th at the DoubleTree Hotel in Ontario. As usual, your staff was, quote-unquote, in caps, perfect. Thank you for helping to make everything run smoothly. You have made boxing a true pleasure for everyone from the promoters to the fans. I'm looking forward to another great year of boxing. Best regards, Kenneth R. Thompson.
Well done. I had any members, I already asked the public, thank you guys. Agenda item number 12, Business and Professions Code Section 18640.5 requires the commission to invite stakeholder testimony in commission meetings in order to identify actions that may lead to greater opportunities for licensees to participate in major professional boxing contests. Anyone like to add anything along those lines at this point? I don't see anybody standing. Roy is busy texting his somebody.
Roy, you're not gonna say anything? You sat through the whole meeting, you're not gonna say anything?
Okay,
Number
fine.
14, public comments on items not on the agenda.
Fine.
We recognize
Roy.
the indefatigable,
We need to.
indistinguishable Roy.
Roy Engelbrecht, fight promoter. I think to put a cap on this meeting, I had 2 shows in the last 14 days. Our sold-out show, Fight Club OC show in Orange County, and then I was the event coordinator for Saturday's HBO show. And I don't want this to sound self-serving, but I just want to thank the commission and let you know how much my company appreciates Andy Foster, his staff in Sacramento, Mark Relier, his crew down in Southern California. Outside of Don Chargan, no one has been promoting longer in this state than myself. And I can't tell you how tough this business is, but to have the intelligence and the wisdom and the hard work of our executive officer, and then it filters down to a staff, it's not even in comparison how well this office is being run than how it has been run in the 30 years that I've been in the business. So commission, know we have a gem of an executive officer and his staff, without a doubt the best in the country. Thank you.
I attended Orange County Fight Club on last Thursday. It was a great event. I mean, you couldn't walk through there with so many people rolling through there. So that was another great event. Thank you.
And I was there Saturday. It was a lot of fun. Yeah, a lot of fun. And you failed to mention the 2 empresses of the universe sitting up here, but fine.
What am I saying? What did I miss? Item number 15.
Do I get a pen?
Review and approval of the 2018 CSAC meeting dates and locations. Is there any comment on that right now?
Yeah, so watch this, Mike, these are our new dates. Mike, so.
Here, we have new dates.
So here are the dates on here. This is certainly not going to be locked in stone, but we can use this as our target dates. We have a San Diego one, which we'll have to, what I would love to do is move this meeting around the state. I agree completely with my Chair Lehman on this, including the San Diego area and out in the desert where there's so many events. So perhaps you could look at, because we have attendance issues when we do that. There's no question about that. Perhaps you could look at wrapping a meeting around an event so that there's a couple of reasons to get people to be in these locations. Could you help us with that?
Sure.
All right.
We can have like a pizza social or something.
In Hawaii.
Seriously, we can get like $5 Little Caesars pizza. I think that would be really
In
good.
Hawaii.
And the venue. Yeah,
Alright.
a better venue than the district
Are
attorney's
these
office.
different than the ones that have been in our list before, these dates, or the same ones?
No, man, they're the same ones.
But we didn't approve it because we didn't have
Do we need an action here? It's just, no, we don't need an
No,
action.
No, sir, you're the chair.
Something to put on your calendars, folks. Please put it on your
'Cause I already
Microsoft
did.
Outlook calendar, so it sends you a.
I already did, I just want
Okay, we're mumbling again. That means we're tired. Item number 16, next meeting is scheduled for May 18, 2018,
May 8th.
May 8. What did I just say?
You're mumbling, John.
I'm mumbling. Commissioners, anything else?
No.
Mr. Foster?
No, sir.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you. This concludes this meeting. Have a great day.